Well, hello, and welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I'm Ross Aiken. I am Old Who.
My name is Melvin Pena, and I'm You Who.
And I'm at a loss for words.
All right. I'm going to let Melvin go last because Melvin likes to go last. I'll go first.
I do like to go last.
I was very entertained by it. It looked gorgeous. I liked a lot of it. I have some of the confusion about plot points that others are having. And I rewatched it again this morning, and that have subsided, especially since Davies decided to come out today and say that Ruby's story's not over. We didn't get all the answers, which is fine, but I wish I knew that going in. I just, again, it didn't stick the landing to me. It didn't stick the landing 100%. I'm not 100% satisfied. I think it will grow on me. It does not hit the Dobby Doctor level. It does not hit the wedding of not the wedding, the season 6 finale, whatever that shit show was. And I think that's.
I can't even remember.
It's the one where times it's only this 5 minutes.
It is. I think it is the wedding of River Song.
It's the wedding of River Song. Okay, because the good one's the husbands of River Song. That's a good episode. No, it's a wedding of River Song, which I think is an absolute shit show.
I like it. It's fun.
It's, oh my God, it's just unwieldy. But I enjoyed it. I'm not a big believer in plot holes. Okay? Unless you've edited something and left something out, it's not there because the writer doesn't want it there. It's not necessary. Not everything said on screen is necessary. Sometimes it's not a math problem. It's not fucking Star Trek. You don't have to have a logical. It's Doctor Who, man. It's broad. I like that it doesn't have rules. I like that they don't explain why things work. I don't need that. I just want good character pieces. I want action. I want adventure. I want it to look good. And overall, I enjoyed it. But to say I'm not like, oh, I hated it, but it doesn't live up to what I saw 100%, what I saw the rest of the season.
I think that's where I'm coming from. It doesn't complement the rest of the season. It doesn't. It didn't for me anyway. I felt very deflated and a bit by the end of it. And when your season finale makes you go, I don't know. I'm still in two minds about it because it's clear that there is still a lot of stuff that has been very heavily sown this season that is coming up in season 2. He's written it as a full thing. But I think if this is your halfway point, if this is your halfway mark, then it was just left very... And to be honest with you, it left me thinking, I don't know if I might just stick with classic Doctor Who going forwards. It's actually turned me off what I've enjoyed from the season to a point that I'm like, I don't really know if this is for me anymore, you know? But there were a lot of things that I did like about it. Again, we've talked endlessly. Shoot is great. Millie is great. Bonnie is great. Even Kate I enjoyed in this, and I'm a bit about her, but her last few appearances have been really strong.
Yeah, he's made some corrections.
And I think from Chibnall, actually, from Power of the Doctor, I think that actually, and Flux, that elevated her for me to a degree. I don't know. There were things I liked. I think the just the quick fix. Everyone's alive again. There was no drama in it because I knew everything was going to go back to normal anyway. So seeing these characters that you love get killed meant nothing. It had no impact for me as a viewer whatsoever because it just felt very formulaic and very samey. And what I was afraid about when RTD was coming back and announced as coming back, it was very RTD, and not the bits of RTD that I do actually appreciate and like. Just this. And yeah, I don't care that he's trolling the audience, and I don't care that he's trying deliberately to create online discourse, because he doesn't need to be the man that does that. We do that ourselves. He doesn't need to play up to that. That's not his job. His job is to take Doctor Who in whatever direction he wants to take it in. But kind of we're twitchy enough as it is as fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what got me. I mean,
we don't need poking because we're permanently poked.
I don't mind him poking the social issues. Like,
no, not at all.
That at all. That's what I loved about the season was he was saying we are going to discuss things because that's what art should be about. It should reflect what we're discussing in the real world. But this ending is whatever. But I feel like Jeff is saying, I understand what he's coming from, because I have a problem with, I was just glad she's not this magic thing. That was my fear. Is Millie going to be the magic thing?
I really liked that. That was one of the things that I took away from this episode that I truly appreciated, was she's just a person. And the reason that her mum was special is because she's special to her.
Yeah.
And I get that. I appreciate that.
I like that. And on the rewatch, I kind of got it better, because why did Sutek have a hard-on for this girl? Because Sutek's nuts, and there's this one thing he had no control of, was what happened in that 73-yard sphere. And it's not the best ending, but it took me 2 viewings to get, oh, that's why he is. He's just so crazed. He wants to control everything by killing it. And since he can't kill that, who is this person? The woman we don't know. I like that she ends up just being a child who had to wanted her daughter saved. I like that it was a human thing. But I didn't like the quick fix of, oh, if I kill Death, everybody comes back to life. It was too simple.
It's very Moffat-y, actually.
Yeah, it is.
I think Melvin's ready for us now, Ross. Yeah, okay. He is prepared.
I am, and I love this. This has been, we'll get to a sort of, I hope, a little season wrap up at the end, but it has been such a joy to me every week to sit down and talk about Doctor Who with y'all. This has been, I was thinking about this because the first time I watched it, I was somewhere between both of y'all. I was like, what was that I just watched? Like a feeling of sort of disappointment or deflation. And then, like Ross, I watched it a second time yesterday, and then I watched it a third time this morning. And I think this is a perfect episode. I think this is a perfect season finale, and I'll tell you, and I will tell you why. I mean, if you look at the episodes that we had sort of the toughest time talking through this season, the ones where we wrestled with them intellectually and spiritually and emotionally and narratively, Boom, 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, Rogue, as opposed to all of the other episodes of the season, which were, Space Babies, The Devil's Cord, The Church of Ruby Road, and then the 2-part finale. All of those other episodes were Doctor Who about Doctor Who. And so I think that there is absolutely, he doesn't need to, but RTD is like the one showrunner in all of fandom. I'm not talking about Doctor Who fandom. I'm talking about all fandoms, who loves to troll his own audience, who gets off on trolling his own audience. He doesn't need to, but he loves it because he knows that it's poking the beast. He knows that it will get us talking. Of course he doesn't have to, but he loves doing it. And I think that one of the points of this, and Ross, I think it was one of the things that you were talking about at the start, is that, just look at those stories that we loved, those ones that again, whether we love them or not, the ones that we enjoyed talking about the most. Like, those stories of the arc are sort of incredibly complicated. So the story has to be simple, whereas the ones that we loved, the stories are very simple. So our talking about them can be complex. Our thoughts about them can be complex. And this is the essence of what RTD is doing and saying about Doctor Who. It's very telling Jeff, and it's not a critique of you at all. It's not a criticism that one of your impulses is, I don't think this is for me. I would rather go back to classic Doctor Who, because I feel like one of the reasons you bring back Sutekh, specifically to bring back Sutekh, is, and I had to look it up because I wasn't sure, there is no season 13, the collection Blu-ray set yet. So like you bring back Sutekh so that you have more, like I felt like this episode was sort of like the 2-part finale was sort of, those Pete McTighe little films that I felt like this was like a 2-episode version of season 13, the Blu-ray collection coming soon. Like it was like to get, there's something here for everyone, that there is joy in revisiting the past, but that this isn't, it's a comment about what Doctor Who is now and what Doctor Who is to be in this new era. I feel like, and I feel like it stuck the landing perfectly for me, because what the point isn't Sutekh. The point isn't that he's going to kill all creation. The point is finding Ruby's mom and reuniting their family. And that's why you get those sort of nested Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, like 3 or 4 different endings at the end of the episode, is because you have to separate, all the Doctor Who stuff is not compatible with the kitchen sink drama, the reuniting. That's why Doctor Who is at the end standing outside the coffee shop when she reunites with her mom. That's why he stays in the TARDIS when they are having those reunion scenes at the end, is those 2 narratives do not mix. And that's one reason I feel like the arc stuff was so fantastical, whereas the stuff of the episodes that we loved was much more grounded. Like the Maestro, the Goblins, the Toymaker, all that stuff, the Sutekh, all of that stuff was in the arc. All the stuff that we enjoyed talking about the most was real people having real issues and struggling with real problems. Sorry, I will keep going on and elucidating these points, but I love this because for me, this is, this was again part of that statement about what Doctor Who is in this era, and that we had an entire season looking at these are all the things that Doctor Who can be, and that Millie's story here, that Ruby's story, is concluded now because she, or at least this phase of it, because we have solved that mystery.
But does that run the risk then of alienating older fans like me, for example, who have been very sort of keen to get into it, run the risk by reducing something from our youth to an exclamation, not even an exclamation point, it's just a comma in the story. And therefore he runs the risk, and I get it, he's got to walk a line. He's got to walk a fine line between modern fans, old fans, and non-fans. I get it, but what he does then, he also does it by saying, we get a scene where Millie asks who the Doctor and Sarah Jane are, and he goes, just some people who travelled in the TARDIS, and that feels very dismissive, as does the treatment of an older character to older fans. Now, I know we're dinosaurs and I know we're stuck in our ways, but that doesn't mean we're also the enemy.
Well, I don't think that's what he's going for with that.
No,
I
know that's not what he's going for, but I think people who aren't able to sit and rationalize and talk about it like we get the opportunity to do every week,
the gift,
are going to have that kind of initial knee-jerk reaction and then not examine why they're having that reaction any further. You know what I mean? Of course I'm not going to stop watching Doctor Who. Of course I'm not, but that's kind of
you've only said that about a dozen times since I've
how
heard you.
it makes me feel,
No, I get it. I want to say something, and I'm not dismissing what you're saying, Jeff, because I have been a fan is probably a little longer than you, I think, now. But we're a smaller portion of the fandom.
Absolutely.
We are a much smaller portion of the fandom because there's at least a generation before us, Jeff, are dead.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, my dad started from 63 and he is now in his 70s.
Yeah, so I mean, part of, and I the one thing I like that this Doctor isn't sharing. He's mentioned regeneration to Millie, but he's not explaining it all. because Moffat leaned into the past a lot. I like kind of that Tennant's doctor would never say, yeah, there was another me, because he didn't, because there's this thing about, he doesn't want to talk about the past because there's pain involved, because he doesn't see Sarah Jane anymore.
And there's also vanity involved, which is why
that's a good point too.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't want to think about the past. It's why she goes, you don't do family, because Davies has brought it back to, no, I'm not doing family anymore, because I can't, because this doctor cries. And I love that. People were complaining he cries too much. And I was just like, let the doctor cry. If this doctor is going to be the weepy one, I'm all on board for it. I don't mind him crying.
It does make me glad they didn't do it with Jodie, but what they've actually done it with is a black guy, you know what I mean? A guy who is in touch with his emotions, you know? And I think that's really... it validates a lot more. They could have made Jodie the weaky, puny woman, you know, but they didn't do that.
No, they made
what
her
they've
the
done
one
is
who was emotionally neutral.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's totally just like...
She's very much early Doctor, like, I'm not you. I don't feel like you. I don't understand your emotions, where this...
But in a less aggressive way than Capaldi. So we're seeing three very different facets of the Doctor in the last few regenerations, and that's great.
But that's it. I like that. But I get what you're saying, and I think a lot of the discourse is my problems were mine were niggly, and I think they could have been fixed with a little extra line of dialogue, which I'm not one to say that normally. You don't have to explain it. But just say, Ross
has a fire in his
apartment. The abominable snowmen are coming for him. That's it.
What were your problems, Ross? Because I probably have answers for them.
But
or at least my
I just think if there had been a thing, I like using the memory TARDIS.
Yep.
I want to shout out Bonnie Langford's performance.
Oh, she was so good.
She is so distressed. She touches Colin's 60s costume, and while Millie and the Doctor are energized to find a solution to save the day, she can't deal. This is more than she experiences as a companion. The universe, this didn't used to happen in her day. And another niggly is stop blowing up the universe. Jesus fucking Christ. Just make it about a single fucking place. I'm sick of it. It is over and over and over and over again. Stop it. It is asinine. They don't even do it in fucking comic books.
That's part of the narrative also, Ross. And I think that
I think it's lazy. It's lazy as shit.
But it's not, because it's part of the narrative.
Oh, no.
No. Like, listen, it is part of the narrative. Like, he brings that up so that you react that way. He brings these things up, Jeff, like you were just saying a minute ago, so that you will react that way. Again, what's important here is, like, think about the TARDIS. Think about that memory TARDIS. Think about how, like you were just saying about Mel, she goes lethargic in the TARDIS. Like, she becomes a non-entity for, like, most of the rest of the episode.
She's died. No one's noticed.
The thing about the memory TARDIS is that Mel has memories in that TARDIS as well. When you get in there, Ruby's like, who is that woman and the man with the hair? The Doctor, we had Tales of the TARDIS. Again, like, one of the reasons you bring back Sutekh is to appeal to old fans. It is to bring new fans into classic Doctor Who. It's to give them a gateway into a newly edited omnibus version of Pyramids of Death, which I thought was really nice and moved along really well and was very exciting. In a way, obviously, the original
watched it on TV and was talking about it in a talk show the next day.
It's true.
So I saw that was neat. I was like, okay, so I didn't realize they were showing the Tales of TARDIS on TV.
Yeah,
on BBC 4, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I agree with Melvin on that. That was a good way to do it.
And so again, Doctor Who, he doesn't say that was me. He does say, I traveled with Mel. We used to travel together, but they don't reminisce. Like, that's what that TARDIS is. That TARDIS is smaller on the inside. It is crowded. It is a plenum. It is, like, full of every memory and every old story. And Mel has memories. She touches the Doctor's coat. She cradles the Seventh Doctor's sweater. Like, but her memories are not generative. They don't spur new stories. Her life and her travels with the Doctor are in the past. And like the way her character, we've talked about her the last couple of weeks, she's very self-assured. She's very calm. She's like a pillar of strength in a way that the Doctors have always been in the past. But Ruby, on the other hand, is like, her story is what moves forward. You know, she's like that leaf in the Clara episode that everyone hated. But like she is all potential. Like she is story that's waiting to happen. That's why she's both appealing to the Doctor and appealing to Sutekh, because there's something there that they don't know, that they want. Like they want that generative energy. Like neither of them can really create life. Doctor Who says, I create life by bringing death to death. I mean, that's one way to do it. Sutekh brings life. He creates life by creating middle-aged women all over the universe. Like, again, there's nothing really generative about that. You know, there's nothing that makes new stories. That's why, again, like, I feel like that it's important to say killing off the universe is old. Killing off the universe is tired. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that scene when the universe is dead, that they go to the planet that we later learn is called Agua Santina, where he meets the sister, Claire from Fleabag.
Is that I knew? I thought I recognized her.
Mm-hmm. Like for me, that is the most interesting scene in the entire episode, because it's the one that's the most real. It's the most unexpected. It's the most spontaneous.
It's the one that
she is such a good actor.
Yeah, it's the one that does what the deaths of the regulars should do.
Yes,
because we know the regulars are going to come back to life. Whatever, it's TV.
And it is such.
We don't know about her and her baby being dead already. But he had to create a scene to put a reason why he had to undo it, because we know that all the characters that we love are coming back, because you're not going to kill Kate. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. You know what I mean? But I did like that scene, and that at that point got me. It's just
he walks in there and she shares with him. She shares with him food. She shares with him all that she has left in the universe. She shares her food. She shares kindness. She shares her story. And then she is exhausted. Like that is, I feel like that's the whole thing about, you know, for me, that's the point of you bring back Sutekh, you end the universe again, is like, none of that's important. What's important is who is the person that you can save? Who is the person that changes your perspective? Who are you doing this for? You know, and I feel like that's one reason why the Doctor at the end, it's not easy for him to let go of Millie or to let go of Ruby, but it's why he has to. He realizes that he has become so involved and invested in lore, in story. Like all he can do in the memory TARDIS, all he can do when he defeats Sutekh is list planets. He just lists planets. It's so boring. It's so dull. It's so repetitive. He may as well just be listing special features on a DVD. Like, again, what matters to him, the core, and that's why for me that scene with the sister, and she doesn't even have a name, which is another thing that should be alarming to us, is that this whole episode we're looking for the name of a character, and the one character who matters the most, the linchpin of the episode, we never know her name. We don't care about her name. What matters is that she is real, that what she is going through matters, that the Doctor sees that and is like, I'm going to save the universe with a spoon. I'm going to save it for you. You know, I love that.
Yeah. I would like to see a climax that was focused on a single person or a single place, not this godlike thing, you know, I like Claire as a character. I like the Impossible Girl, but, you know, at times it's like, I think the only time the rebooting the universe ever really worked for me was Pandorica. I think it because that's just a little tight. It's a crutch. I think they lean into, and I mean, I get what you're saying. And he wanted spectacle, and he gave us spectacle. I don't mind the spectacle.
Yep.
I think, and my points are niggly. It's just, couldn't you have just destroyed Sutekh?
The spectacle is all well and good, but like Melvin says, it's the low key, the small, the seemingly minor moments that actually matter, that actually make a difference. And if your spectacle overshadows that, then you start losing what's important. And I think this verged into the territory of overshadowing that simple human emotion. And the real reason why the Doctor does what he does, because he does it for nameless people across the universe, across time, for their lost children, for their living children. He does it for us, people, just people.
Yeah. And I like, I liked his last
that is a beautiful
conversation with
sentiment,
CK.
and I get why it reaches Melvin in that way, But when that is kind of lost in the midst of so much else. But that was a scene that stood out to me, and that was a scene that spoke to me, and that was a scene that, yeah, like you said, that was the linchpin, that was the crux, that was the Doctor getting his motivation back, and seeing that people were suffering. And there's been a lot of that this season, and we've spoken a lot. And if you're looking for a full stop on all of those conversations, all of those valuable conversations that we've had, that scene is the full stop on that. That's where you say, this is my point. The trouble is your point then gets lost in dragging Sutex around the time vortex on a bungee cord, and that is a shame, I think, because I felt like I wanted this season to do something different at the end. We've had so much truly valuable conversation, I think, between the three of us, and hopefully everyone that's listened to those episodes has felt the same. Be it they agree with one of us, they agree with all of us, they agree with none of us. It doesn't really matter. We're having these conversations. That's what matters. So I wanted the season to be a bit more low-key, and a bit more grounded, maybe, and a bit less fantastical than it turned out to be. But that's not to say there weren't beautiful moments and beautiful scenes. There were highs and lows, I think, in this episode. But the highs got lost in the lows a little bit. And that feels a shame to me, and I think maybe it's a case of time. I've only watched it the once.
I will
same
say
with
that
all of the
on the second
episodes.
watch, I enjoyed it. I could put past you've done the thing I dislike about your finales.
Yep.
The thing I was afraid of. And
Yeah,
so
like I
I
said,
was afraid of some of this stuff. I was afraid of that because I don't think it's absolutely necessary in storytelling. I think it is his tick. It's Moffat's tick at that's about 75% of it. I think Chibnall, he avoided it. I don't think he really does it until he gets to Power of the Dalek and the Flux. But I saw someone say the Flux was I saw someone I don't think liked the Flux, said the Flux was a better payoff to an arc than this season was. I was like, wow.
But this isn't the payoff to the arc.
No,
I know, and that's the other thing that gets me.
This is just the end of this part of the story.
I wish this was not I wish the cliffhanger, we had a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Well, we
a real
sort of did.
Yeah, we sort of did.
Yeah,
because that's the thing again about the nested narrative is that you pull back from the Ruby Sunday story at the very end and you leave her house and then you're back into Doctor Who world. Like obviously Ruby's going to come back, all that kind of stuff.
Well,
but
no, Davies came on today and said, yes, the story's not over. Blah blah blah.
No, I mean,
waited till the
of
next
course,
day.
but I mean this part of Ruby's story, which is like finding her mother, because that's the entire thing. When we started the church on Ruby Road, the entire story, this story of this season of Doctor Who is about reuniting Ruby with her mother. Like that is, more than ever.
Was fantastic.
Yes, and so more than ever, like again, it's one of the things that wasn't necessarily lampshaded, but it's one of the tensions that we're talking about here. Is what is Doctor Who now? What is Doctor Who in the RTD2 era? What is old Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who? And again, it's not a critique. It's like because he loves this stuff. He and Moffat, he says that they talked about, man, wouldn't it have been great to do an Axos sequel or a sequel to the Image of the Fendal and like have it air with the old episode on one of the TV. Like they did that. He loves this. He's not critiquing it, but he knows that old Doctor Who is grainy footage which is the little screen he's carrying around with him everywhere. It's forgotten
I love that.
granddaughters. It's silent. It's former companions huddled in a corner, clutching at their memorabilia. It's desiccated gods. It's ancient stories. And I feel like one of the larger points of this season is that, and it's one of the things that he tried to emphasize in 2005 was that this is not the story of Doctor Who. This is the story of the companion. And I feel like more than ever, for this season, this it's not the story about. It's not about the Doctor. It's about what and Jeff, it's what you were just saying, and Ross, what you were saying about those middle episodes that we had so much fun and so much like struggle talking our way through or thinking about. It's like, what can we take away from witnessing his adventures? And the companion is our proxy into that. Like, we think about the rebooting the universe and no one ever remembers. But when he brings them back, he's like, can you remember what happened when you faded away? And Kate's like, echoes. And then when Cherry Sunday and Mrs. Flood, who knows what's going on with them? When they come back, Mrs. Flood is like, oh, you clever boy. And they sort of, they rejoice. Like, because they were lost and they know it. It's not a complete reboot where no one remembers. Like, this is something where we're asked to, like, say, we recognize that there is value in life and that there is, what do we value is connection with people around us. Like, again, I feel like this is it's asking us to say, what is Doctor Who about? And I feel like what it's telling me is that, Doctor Who is telling us, there's lots of crazy shit out there. But this is what matters. It's talking to y'all on Sundays about Doctor Who. It's, I love it. That's what Doctor Who is about for me in the RTD2.
Just to clarify that point, Melvin has got out of his COVID bed to talk about Doctor Who with us this Sunday. Thank you, Melvin.
Laid up for 3 days. Yep.
He's not a well man, but that's what the power of talking about Doctor Who does, isn't it? It invigorates us to a point that even if what we're saying isn't necessarily positive all of the time, but I think we try to couch it in sort of positive terms. You know what I mean? We're not just sitting here saying it was shit, I don't like it, I don't like Doctor Who. Because we're not about that. We know Doctor Who of old, and we know Doctor Who can do many different things and be many different things. And sometimes those things land for a person, sometimes those things don't land for a person. There were bits in this truly did land for me, and bits that didn't. But what I take away from this season is what we've done together.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest takeaway from this season is these conversations that we've had every Sunday. The reason Melvin's out of his COVID bed is the fact that we've got to talk about this and see it from a different perspective and get new light on it, because we only think the way we think, but we don't think the way each other thinks. And so hearing opinions is valuable.
And that's the thing is, I'm not trying to argue you to my point of view.
Of course, no.
Like,
I love having.
Just I'm very adamant about my opinion, but I want someone to enjoy it. I don't expect. My expectation with art, as someone who is, and I lean back on my theater career, is all I can do as my part as an art in that is my part. And it's the same way you watch it. Every art affects everybody differently. The big thing about this podcast, even when me and Vic were, especially during these times we live in, was viewing art changes based on who's viewing it, why they're viewing it, out of habit or newness. Jeff and me were old fans going into New Who in 2005. So we had a different take than, say, the kids who were embracing a new show that they are now fucking adults with kids.
And they're
sharing
criticizing.
the show.
And they're criticizing.
And also what's going on in the world. What is happening in our daily life, the world, whatever. And I like it. And that's one thing I always like about Davies' Doctor Who is it is about the companion and how it affects them, that he brought the families in. And I think I'm not a fan of all of his companions. But I do like the fact that we see Mom, we see the people, and we see a human being travel with him. And I don't think we saw that with every old Who companion. We saw it extremely well with some of the great companions, and we saw it middling. And then there's some companions, like poor Mel was never given anything to shine. You know, they didn't give Bonnie anything to do. And look what you get when you give Bonnie Langford something to do. She drives the action in the first half of this episode. We see the post-traumatic stress. We see grief through Mel, because our new companion and our doctor, they must be the hero. But it's not just the heroes fixing it. We're seeing how she slowly dies from grief. And I think that's the point he's doing, that Mel is given up and let the sand take her. She's fighting it. You know, she fights it near the end, but she can't fight the battle because it has to be Millie and it has to be the doctor. I think I liked it more the second time, and I think I'm going to watch it again. I actually went and watched Pyramids of Mars Friday afternoon before this aired with my buddy Ken, and I was struck by the difference. And I haven't watched the shortened version, and I was like going, I think Sutekh is great. I prefer the Sutekh in the original because it's subtle and menacing. I do like the big Ed. I do like the good dog, as Jeff called him.
There have been many excellent, regardless of what people have thought about it, on Twitter all weekend when I've been, there have been so many excellent memes. I just love the idea, and it is super over the top. And again, it doesn't seem to matter whether people liked it or not. People love the idea of Sutekh, like as a dog, using the TARDIS as a chew toy. Like, I love that idea. That's a great idea.
I saw a great one of Sutekh as Snoopy asleep on the top of the TARDIS.
I forwarded it.
Perfect.
It was perfect. But
I also like. Sorry, I will just cut in. I also like all of the references to classic Doctor Who stories now, like when Lady Painfort shoots the arrow into the TARDIS. It's like that hitting Sutekh in the butt. It's like, because it's all of that now to consider. I think Sutekh clinging on to the TARDIS is a metaphor, ultimately, and I think you're not supposed to take it literally. I mean,
look, that's the other thing though. Look at him, like the way, and I love that. I mean, the visual is so compelling. It's so weird.
Turns it around to
me and my Doctor Who toys.
Well, yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. He is Ian Levine. He is like saying, "I have no." Well, he is. He's and it's the dark side, Jeff, of what you were saying earlier. Well, it is. It's the dark side. It's the like villainous cartoon villain side of what you were talking about. You know, your initial reaction is like, oh, maybe I'll only watch classic Doctor Who now. And I know that it's an extreme thing. It's like, I control Doctor Who, and he wants Ruby's mother's name because he wants to be the first person to amend TARDIS Wiki. You know, he wants to be the one whose name is. He wants to be the one whose name is there. He wants to be the one who knows a secret fact that no one else knows. Like, there's something really, like, and again, that image, you know, regardless of the fact, and of course that's why they get rid of him 15 minutes with still 15 minutes of episode left. Of course that's why it's easy to get rid of him, because he's a laughable cartoon villain. He is a giant dog playing with a chew toy. Like, but yeah, no, I mean, I love it because, you know, it's one of the things where the Doctor, you know, when he realizes he's defeated, all he can do is scream, you know. He just screams. And what does Sutekh want? All he wants is silence. So, I mean, the Doctor and Sutekh are two extremes of the spectrum, you know. What matters here is, again, it's Ruby. She's the gray area. She's where things can happen. She's where there is possibility. You know, she and the kind woman on the planet, you know, that has forgotten her baby and, you know, gets the baby back at the end. Like, that's where new stories are possible. Sorry to break in again because we're having fun talking about the fun image of Sutekh.
I do like. I overall like Sutekh a great deal. I liked his minions. I liked the actress who played Harriet Arbinger. Oh
my God.
It was a good performance. That was a really good performance, and Margaret Sweet did an amazing job. I do like the joke at the end. I could make the tea.
Susan Twist. Mark, where'd you get Margaret Sweet from?
Oh, I like it though. She goes, "I can make the tea. Did you make this?" Yes. Don't.
They'll make the tea. No, but that's lovely also because, you know, I didn't see that they brought back Harriet, but obviously she would have been brought back to life. But that she and Susan now get fresh stories, you know, that they are somehow redeemed because they weren't villains.
They get a Big Finish box set.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I did. I think I want to talk about. I do want to talk about Millie and well, more Millie. I didn't know what to take. I mean, she's been good throughout the season.
Yeah.
I did like her in this finale, and the subject of foundlings that Davies latched onto that after Jodie and the Timeless Child. And when the doctor tries to go, she spent her whole life without you. You don't need to find her. She did something. She gave you a gift by giving you up. You don't have to go through this. And that she does it. She just goes, no, I have to do this.
Yep.
And that it's a happy ending. She's a nice woman. They've all become an extended family. I love that coda at the end of this. I love that it was that. And I love that the doctor, she walks away. I like it. It's not, he doesn't leave her. She brings up, but you left her. You left Susan and never went back. How? Because I like them mentioning that again, like classic Doctor Who companions are abandoned a great deal of the time.
Yep.
Or given bad plot device exits. And I like, he goes, well, I've changed. You know, he says that I've changed. I used to be like that, but I'm not like that now. So and to let us know we're going to see Millie again. We all know we're going to see Millie again, but I like that. I really liked. I did, and oh God, I can't remember. Someone on Twitter put it up. When I saw that picture of her mom on the screen, I swore to God it was Sheridan Smith, and I was kind of
it was Scott Gray.
His last name was Miller. Why the missed opportunity that it was Lucy Bleeding Miller's kid, and then to bring Sheridan Smith into the show, because that woman is one of the best actresses in British television, period. At full stop. She can do anything.
I had exactly the same response. It was Scott Gray, Doctor Who comic extraordinaire creator. He picked up on that.
Hanging on my wall.
Yes, I've got some of Scott's art. He's amazing.
I've got two of his pieces as well.
I have a Sarah Jane by him that is just stunning.
But yeah, I absolutely went down because we're old fans, and that's how our brain works.
She looked like her.
She did. In those younger pictures, she really did. And at first I was like, is this a Lucy Miller connection? Are we going to get Lucy?
For a minute, I almost squealed. I wanted it.
Anyway, I also thought the whistle came out. I thought we were getting K9 for a moment.
I'd have liked that too.
Did you see his head in the memory TARDIS?
No.
His head is in the memory TARDIS. You can see it on one of the walls. It's incredible.
That's a bit fucking macabre.
It is a little bit, but so is Handel's.
Here's one
Handel's head is there as well.
It's the head of the David Brierley version of him. It's fucking killing.
Oh, that's all right then. No, it's the one that came off in full circle.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it is great. That part of
I'm going to go back and I'm going to rewatch the season as a whole.
You should. I feel like you should.
With
the specials?
The first Tenet one, because I think this is really that's the season.
Yeah, that's where the seed starts. Yeah.
That because my wife is it's only 8 episodes. I said with the specials, it's 12.
11.
And because that's one of the other reasons to go back and rewatch it is for Rose Noble, because I saw I did see some whinging on the internet about how limited her role was in the finale, but again, I don't think that's the point. The point is that she's there. Like Morris at the end is eating a piece of pizza. Like that's his contribution.
Oh my God,
to
I
the
love
Empire
that.
of Death.
Little kids eating a piece of pizza.
It's brilliant because again, it's life. It's real. It's like of course he's a kid. Of course he's gonna eat pizza. But like that they're there. That's the point. Is like that there's a for people who are interested in continuity or whatever. Like that's all it is. To have Rose there, she doesn't have to. And because we were talking last week about. And I feel like Carla and Cherry still will have a role to play, because we thought that maybe they were going to have a bigger role this week.
Mrs. Flood. I think who is Mrs. Flood.
So we'll see all of those folks again. But like, what you're talking about the part at the end, like it's really quite moving. That when we switch out of, and again, I was going to say if you rewatch the season, sort of think about it in that way. Think about. The ARC episodes as almost in an X-Files way, that the ARC episodes are one story and but that Doctor Who is an anthology show at its core. And I think it still is, that the episodes that we are going to come back to and talk about the most are going to be those ones in the middle of the season that we loved and like had such a good time wrestling through. The rest of them are a little bit forgettable.
I can say now, well, first I'll say I loved that the TARDIS perimeter was 73 yards.
Yes.
That all ties in very nicely.
Just real quick, that was another one of the things
foreshadowing what we haven't heard yet, because she knows about this prime minister in the future, and the doctor goes, "Do you know?" And I love it. Goes, "Oh, I was here at the fall." Like, so instead of her fixing it, she didn't really fix it.
It's an alternate timeline.
She erased an alternate timeline, and the doctor has to go on went on one of his previous incarnations.
But the thing is, she still retains some of that.
Something is in it, so there's
which I also love, because again, people were like, "Oh, well, it didn't matter because it didn't happen." I'm like, no, it mattered. It happened. Like these things. That's another one of those things about the like rebooting the universe for this RTD2 run. Like nothing's being forgotten here. Like that's one of the. I think that's another one of the reasons you get that memory TARDIS is like, it looks a little cheesy and it looks a little silly, but like. Again, nothing is forgotten. Everything is canon. Everything counts.
Yeah. I think part of the disappointment you get I got from this finale was the realization that we're only halfway through, and I think that's a big part of it. I think a big part of it is I was looking forward to seeing how this all wraps up, and it hasn't. And because intentionally, it hasn't because of plot holes. It hasn't. Intentionally, he has kept things to spill over into the next season, and that's great. I get it, but that also takes some adjusting to as well, and kind of going, all right, I know I've now got to wait pretty much a year before I can be satisfied, and there's something about delayed gratification, but at the same time, I'm not sure I can put it off that long. We talked in our lost recording last week. I described RTD as the king of the vinegar strokes. He's very good at the build and what have you. And I'm not sure I can be at that point for a year. That is going to frustrate the hell out of me.
And I feel like that's
we've
one
got
of the
Christmas
reasons
episode to come, and
and I feel like that's one of the reasons
I think because
the Ruby narrative is to at least put a cap on that part of it.
Yeah, and I think because they were shooting this first season at the tail end of COVID was dying off. They didn't have their lead actor every day. He really couldn't come until later in production because of other commitments, Sex Education and Barbie. And that's why we had the two Dr. Lights, and that they basically filmed seasons, series 1 and series 2 or whatever we're going to call them, at the same time, like back to back. They didn't take a break. They just went in. So I know they're planning 3. I don't know if they started production on 3 or whatever.
He says he's already written scripts for 3.
But it hasn't been greenlit yet either.
And again, like, what does that even mean? Like, I think that's all just like smoke and mirrors. Like, it's gonna air, it's gonna be made. You don't write things unless there's money.
Of the day,
you don't write unless there's money.
It could just go on to Disney Plus full time and make it a Disney Plus thing for the UK as well. Ultimately, if the BBC didn't want to wear the episodes are going to go somewhere. You know what I mean?
I stay on iPlayer and your little Hooniverse bubble. And if at the most decent, Marvel will go, what do we have to pay you? Because they would have to pay the BBC. What do we have to pay you to have this on worldwide? What is that dollar amount?
And I think that's probably
the only thing that's holding it up.
Yeah,
because
I was going to say
because of all the original writers' families in the States have to get a taste, which I like. I mean, except someone needs to go to Coburn's kid and kick the shit out of him in an alley because he's a little twat.
I do have to say I did have one quibble with this episode before we really.
Let's hear Melvin's.
And it really bugged the absolute shit out of me. And I'm sorry to be a pedant, but I've worked in coffee shops. Like, I've spent time being a barista. And that final scene where she walks into the shop and like orders a cappuccino, I timed it. I put my stopwatch on. I'm sorry, I got to be a pedant about this. It was 34.57 seconds before her name gets called. I'm sorry, you're still getting the coffee grinds and like making the coffee. You can't boil the milk.
Even froth the milk.
You cannot froth the milk. You
35
cannot
seconds.
froth
That
the
takes
milk
about
and
a
make a
minute.
cappuccino in 34.57 seconds. That is absolutely insane.
What you didn't notice was the coffee shop was called the coffee shop was called the Blue Peter, and this was one he'd made earlier.
I was enraged. RTD must go. RTD era is over. RTD is a fraud.
Oh, I saw one reel where a guy's going, "How can I trust you?" No, really, because he didn't like the payoff. He was like, I've built up all this, and this is the payoff, and how can I ever trust you again? It's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Someone made a valid point, and I'm not sure the analogy quite works, but Doctor Who is a bus, and we are all passengers. We don't set the route. We just get off closest to where we want to get off to. It's not a taxi. You are not getting into the vehicle and saying, this is where I want you to take
Exactly.
me.
Yes.
We can build up our expectations all we like, but it's not up for us, and it's not really up to the showrunner, the producer, the writer, whatever medium of Doctor Who you're looking at. It's not up for them to satisfy us.
Nope.
It's for us to be satisfied with what we get, really.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's not. That's a double-edged thing as well, because if you're doing something as fan heavy as Doctor Who, which does have a large, long-running, established fandom, and people who dearly love the show, a lot of the anger comes from love for what people have had as a companion throughout their lives, throughout their journeys. I've spoken before about how Doctor Who helps me get through difficult times, and so you do attach maybe an excessive value on to something that is just throwaway TV at the end of the day.
It's like it's the same in Star Trek fandom. People just there, and you can tell it by older fans go, I like this. Why is this different? It's because you like that in 1981 and it is 2024.
And that's one of the biggest problems with hot take culture is like,
yes,
because you see something once and it doesn't fit your view of what Doctor Who is because you've lived with Pyramids of Mars for 48 years. Again, it's like it's you got to step back. Just got to step back and realize. And we talked about this, I think, a couple of times during the David Tennant specials. Like, people are going to watch these episodes. Like, again, the hot take. People are going to watch these episodes over and over again and make podcasts about them over and over again for people are still making, if you go onto Doctor Who, search Doctor Who Twitter or on the internet, you will find a new episode of some Doctor Who podcast about Frontios at least once a month. Like, people are going to be watching this but this is like for the kids who are going to be watching this or rewatching it in 30 years on their Fiction Mist Blu-ray, I'm in my bubble collection,
As they're arguing about Doctor Who's current iteration and its showrunner or writer or producer, it's...
Which is, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's
lovely. It's lovely.
It is, and that's the joy of it. And I want to go back to what Jeff was saying about our conversations. Yes. I think this is the most fun I've had talking about a new season in the years I've been doing the podcast. And I think the first new season me and Vic talked about was Capaldi's first one, because it'd been 2017. And as much fun as I had talking about Jodie with Jeff during Flux, we didn't do a final episode because I had a little mental break.
And so did I, to be fair.
Yeah. That this was the most enjoyable, and I think they are some of the best episodes we put out. I think, who is it? It's is it Millie?
Yes.
Over on Blue Sky, there are two of our
Millie and Ian.
Ian are they have just latched on to our conversations and had these incredible conversations themselves
about our conversations.
And I loved it. I don't chime in on those because I don't want to affect that conversation that I had. And I like that we have, even in a small place, have affected people, made them go, oh no, now because I think they took they got something out of our conversations that allowed them to kind of not understand it better, but appreciate the story in a different way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
their
so-
journey, and help them, or made their journey through this season a little more enjoyable. And that, to me, that's all I ever want from doing this podcast. That someone is entertained, they laugh, they think they could poke fun at me for being, for what I like or did like, but to have them, two people that follow us that got such pleasure out of listening to us, and it added to their pleasure of watching Doctor Who. I'm job well done, gentlemen.
Me too. I'm so grateful. And for me, like, this is probably the most fun I've had watching a new Doctor Who season since Capaldi's last season 10, I believe that was, because my friend Heidi and I would get together every week and just talk about the episode. And it was so much fun just working through it with her, in the same way that it's been fun just teasing out ideas with y'all. Like, I don't know, again, it's really wonderful, and I'm so grateful that to see like Millie and Ian and Mark McManus, the Podfather, the Call the Midwife of Doctor Who podcasters, has told me several times, and he shouted us out on their most recent episode of Trap One. Like, he listens to the podcast once he's done recording, and I'm really grateful to whoever listens. But for me, the real joy, and again, we lost a couple of episodes, but like, I was here for them, and I experienced that with y'all. So like that's what matters to me, is like having this experience. And I'm so grateful, to Millie and Ian and Mark, and I know Joe Ford shared us as well, of Hamsterverse fame. Also Mark, I think Cockrum of All of Time and Space podcast.
Yeah,
like, I'm just so grateful that people are listening to us at all. Cause like, again, the joy for me is being here and sharing this with y'all. Like, this is really meaningful to me, and I'm really grateful to y'all for letting me be part of this community.
And all of those guys, I've been mates with them for a long time, and for them to give that feedback without us even being sort of present for the feedback to be given, and I just stumbled across it on Blue Sky, and I was so moved. I think, really, I'm a fairly unemotional kind of guy, but for people that I respect and whose art and creations and visions and opinions I care about, to say nice things about the fact that we've had, I don't want this to turn into a backpacking session, you know what I mean?
No, it's not.
I think they need to know that they're appreciated, and that we can have this conversation, just three middle-aged guys just chatting Doctor Who, that then prompts those kind of conversations. It matters, and hopefully it spreads a more reasoned discourse back onto the internet, because the last thing I want is knee-jerk reactions, and I'm guilty of doing knee-jerk reactions. I've done it for the last 15 years that I've been watching, or 20 years that I've been watching modern Doctor Who. I'm a sucker for a knee-jerk, but at the same time, the way places like Twitter are, or X or whatever, the way those places can be is feral at times, and just lots of people shouting into the void, with no real bounce back either. You'll see an inflammatory tweet and maybe a couple of angry replies, and that's about as far as that goes, and it doesn't really go any further, because if you're like me, you'll skirt around that and go, I don't want to have this discussion here, because this is not the place to have this discussion. Whereas being able to see you guys, talk to you, respect you, and know that you guys know what you're talking about, it really helps.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that sort of ties it back to the episode for me is, like, at the end, Doctor Who, and he cries all the time. I cry all the time. Like, that's a connection as well. But like, at the drop of a hat. But like that when he closes the door, because on Ruby and on that adventure, because she starts talking about her home life, and my dad, they found him, and they found his text message, and she just starts talking about like regular normal stuff in a way that sounds like Doctor Who talking about planets. Like, it just is not, it doesn't belong here, but that there's an exit to the real world where things matter. And like, for me, one of the amazing things about doing a Doctor Who podcast is, y'all mentioned earlier, I'm caught with global pandemic right now. And when I mentioned it on the internet, I cannot say how grateful and how moved I was to the Doctor Who community specifically. Like I need to shout out Joe Short, again, Mark at Time and Space Podcast, assuming that he's running the Twitter over there. Lucy, Cy from the Trap One family, Tom Newsom, who does illustrations for Big Finish, and Rob Valentine, noted Doctor Who writer, like all sent me get well wishes aside from y'all. And like, again, to have fiction stuff like come into real reality. And I felt very abandoned by health insurance and by our government when I told you before the podcast started, but I felt so supported by people I had never met. Like it was, again, like to do a Doctor Who podcast or to guest on other podcasts and feel, again, real support from real people that is an extraordinary thing to come out of having conversations about silly television programs.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that as well.
But those silly television. Oh, sorry, Ross. Go.
Go ahead, say Jeff. Then I'll say mine because I'm gonna lead that.
I was going to say those silly television programs have brought together. There's some really fine, decent, intelligent, kind, thoughtful people on the internet, and you just have to find your people. And when you find your people, you are home, and that's a beautiful thing, and it's why I can't give up things like Twitter, X, Blue Sky. Because I found my people and I don't want to turn my back on them. That's why I always come back, even when I have my little tizzy fits and get rid of my account or what have you. But then I suddenly realise what I've just done, and then the regret kicks in, and it's like I don't want these people to think I've turned my back on them, because that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is not coping with all of the influx of data that you get constantly by just sitting there doom scrolling on these awful devices that would have been science fiction in 1963 when what we're talking about came into existence.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, Jeff, you're the first person I ever really kind of reached out to as another fan and had you on, and then I met everybody else, and I was on other people's podcasts, and I've had some, and I met Melvin through Mark and Trap One. I've got an episode that's been in the can since a month before this season started, with someone who I forgot even what episode we covered. And I'm pulling it up now, but I've met new people that are going to be on the podcast, and this season has been such a joy to me because of these conversations and how much fun these conversations are and how they affected other people, and I liked it. Yeah, because the next one I'm doing is Michael Storm is coming on. And I even can't even remember which one we talked about. It was not the greatest episode of Old Who, but it will be the next one that posts in about 2 weeks. And then I've got, so before we go on, do you guys have any quick recommendations?
I do. Go ahead, Jeff.
What's in the Box podcast with Jim Allenby. It's me this week. Sorry, I'm not good at promoting myself. I'm not good at bigging myself up. I do not do it. I cringe inwardly inside. The fact that you ever got me doing podcasts is a miracle, because I hate my voice.
But you're one of the go-to guests, Jeff. You are the guest that people want, because your insight is so much better than most of ours.
In regards to some things, if in regards to very specific Doctor Who stuff, possibly, maybe. But yeah, we had a great conversation. I think we talked for about 3 hours, and he split it into 2 parts. So the first part should be, if I've got this right, me talking about The Rescue again, because I can't shut up about it, because I love it. And I Davros, one of the first things you and me talked about, actually.
Oh,
Ross.
yeah, that was a great because I'd never really listened to it until you recommended it. So good. Well, let you know, Jeff. Remember, I have Jody is now back in the mix, and I'm going back with Jody and doing it like revisited because I wanted to do it as something in the past. And next up in the round is Ghost Machine. Or
Ghost Monument.
Ghost Monument. So, yeah.
My recommendation this week is I just read in the sick bed this weekend a really phenomenal graphic novel by Mark Russell, who the last time I read one of his things was like the beginning of the year. I read the Snagglepuss Chronicles, which is about a Hanna-Barbera cartoon who like becomes a gay closeted playwright in the 50s. It's brilliant. But this weekend I read another one by him called Superman Space Age, which is illustrated by the Allreds, Mike and Laura Allred. And it is,
I haven't bought it yet.
It is perfect. If you, I'm not a
is.
huge Superman person. I need to get more into it, obviously.
You have to find the right one.
And this is the right one. This is the right one. It's like
Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's
All-Star Superman.
Also, my God, yeah, it's a love letter to the Silver Age. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And so this one is like a love letter to also. It's just like contains everything that is good about Superman. It is very. It actually runs very close parallel to our Doctor Who story today, because the entire universe is going to be annihilated, and what do? Like, that's basically the problem. And it's really, really beautiful. It's an amazing script. And again, Mike and Laura Allred, their art is always perfect. It is always the perfect thing for whatever script they're working on. So that's my recommendation is Mark Russell and the Allreds, Superman Space Age. Absolutely beautiful. I was in tears at the end.
All right, Jeff, what's yours?
No, that was it. Just my podcast.
Oh,
I've got nothing else.
Actually,
I'm gonna nick a leaf out of your book, Ross. I'm going to recommend Sweet Tooth because it's bloody great. I'm nearly finished the second season. So what's that been? 2 weeks. Just been chunking away. Maybe a couple.
My
of
wife
episodes.
watched the finale, series finale. Oh my God, 2 days ago, and I want to shout out. Where are you at in season 2?
Coming up to the end. Big man has been
so you've
caught.
Met the other bad guys.
He's in
like
the. Go
on. You've met the other bad guys that the head of the Last Men deals with.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, the woman with the Asian woman with the southern accent who plays one of the villains.
Yeah.
She is Nurse Agawa from Star Trek: The Next Generation. She was Beverly Crusher's right-hand person in sickbay. She was the second. Yeah, and she is fucking horrible, evil in that show. And she's in a bunch of season 3, and she is just absolutely terrible, and it's glorious. She is such a great villain. Oh, I loved her. She's great. My recommendation is something I haven't watched yet, but I've never seen it available in this country. I discovered it an hour ago. I saw a little tab on my Fire TV. It said Lone Wolf and Cub, and I went, is that the movie?
Yes!
No, it's not the movies. On Freevee, which used to be IMDb, the Lone Wolf and Cub television series.
I don't know how I feel about that.
It's by the same. No.
You could just watch The Mandalorian, to be honest with you. But,
I've met my brother Hugh, who is turned me on to Lone Wolf and Cub. He loves the movies. He showed them to me at an inappropriate age.
As it should be.
Ooh, boobies. Ooh, someone's head just rolled down the street. What the fuck? But I'm going to try the TV series out because it looks good. I watched the first 10 minutes and went, crap, I got to go record. So that's it. Well, guys, thank you again. We will talk again at Christmas for Joy to the World, because they announced the title.
When shall we three meet again?
I will probably be calling you guys, getting you guys to come on
obviously
sooner than later. And I know I'm going to reach out to Mark now that this is over, so me and Melvin and him can get and talk about the 14th, the second Tenet comic strip.
And I want to do the Ghost Monument.
Yeah, you are. No, don't worry about it. You and me. I really want to talk about it now this many years out, because we talked about it originally. And it is still, I saw someone bash it on the internet, and I wanted to climb into the screen and kick them. Yeah. Someone said it was overrated. I was like going, you tasteless twat.
Overrated? Hardly.
Hardly.
Let's let Melvin go and curl up in a fetal position.
Yes.
I need to get back to bed.
Feel
Yes.
better.
Thank you so much for doing this, Melvin. Appreciate it.
y'all.
Thank you. And hey, everybody, thanks for listening. Hey, we look forward to seeing you somewhere in time or space.